enzymes, method of action. So, there are two theories for the method of action of enzymes. The first one is the lock and key mechanism, and the second one is something called the induced fit hypothesis. So lock and key, this is where the substrate fits into the enzyme like a key fits into a lock of a door. And then when the products are formed, they are a slightly different shape and therefore they will get released. So lock and key, substrate fits into the enzyme like a lock and key, the reaction happens and then the products are released. The substrate has a complementary shape to the active site. However, there are some limitations of the lock and key model. So the model kind of considers the enzyme to be a rigid structure. However, scientists discovered that other molecules could bind to the enzymes at sites away from the active site, which changes the enzyme's activity, which you'll go on to later about competitive and non-competitive inhibitors. They bind somewhere else on the enzyme and change the enzyme's activity. And this suggests that the enzyme shape can be altered by the binding of the molecule. And it also suggests that the structure is flexible, not rigid. So what we now use is something called the induced fit hypothesis. And this is where the substrate is not quite complementary to the enzyme. It's almost complementary to the enzyme's active site. But enough of the substrate can fit into the active site so that the enzyme then flexes and becomes complementary. It's a bit like when you put a rubber glove on. The rubber glove before you put it on isn't exactly the same shape as your hand. But then when you stretch it over your hand, it then fits perfectly like a glove. So it's a bit the same with the induced fit hypothesis. The substrate fits into the active site, it's almost complementary, but then the enzyme flexes so that it becomes complementary. So you can see it's not quite complementary, it's not quite deep enough there, it's not quite big enough there, but enough of the substrate can fit that when it actually binds, the enzyme changes shape slightly so that it perfectly fits, so that they become complementary. And then to form an enzyme substrate complex, the reaction happens and the products get released.